Chapter 20. There we go. Now, in the night, he lay and waited for the girl to come to him. There was no wind now, and the pines were still in the night. The trunks of the pines projected from the snow that covered all the ground, and he lay in the robe feeling the suppleness of the bed under him. Uh, that he had made. His legs stretched long against the warmth of the robe, the air sharp and cold on his head and in his nostrils as he breathed. Under his head, as he lay on his side, was the bulge of the trousers and the coat that he had wrapped around his shoes to make a pillow. And against his side was the cold metal of the big automatic pistol he had taken from the holster when he undressed and fastened by its lanyard to his right wrist. He pushed the pistol away and settled deeper into the robe as he watched across the snow the dark break in the rocks that was the entrance to the cave. The sky was clear, and there was enough light reflected from the snow to see the trunks of the trees and the bulk of the rocks where the cave was. Earlier in the evening, he had taken the axe and gone outside of the cave and walked through the new snow to the edge of the clearing and cut down a small spruce tree. In the dark, he had dragged it butt first to the lee of the rock wall. There, close to the rock, he had held the tree upright, holding the trunk firm with one hand and holding the axe shaft close to the head, had lopped off all the boughs until he had a pile of them. Then, leaving the pile of boughs, he had laid the bare pole of the trunk down in the snow and gone into the cave to get a slab of wood he had seen against the wall. With this slab, he scraped the ground clear of the snow along the rock wall, and then picked up his boughs and, shaking them clean of snow, laid them in rows, like overlapping plumes, until he had a bed. He put the pole across the foot of the bough bed to hold the branches in place, and pegged it firm with two pointed pieces of wood he split from the edge of the slab. Then he carried the slab and the axe back into the cave, ducking under the blanket as he came in, and leaned them both against the wall. "What do you do outside?" Pilar had asked. "I made a bed." "Don't cut pieces from my new shelf for thy bed." "I am sorry." "It has no importance," she said. "There are more slabs at the sawmill. What sort of bed hast thou made?" "As in my country." "Then sleep well on it," she had said, and Robert Jordan had opened one of the packs and pulled the robe out and replaced those things wrapped in it back in the pack, and carried the robe out, ducking under the blanket again, and spread it over the boughs so that the closed end of the robe was against the pole that was pegged crosswise at the foot of the bed. The open head of the robe was protected by the rock wall of the cliff. Then he went back into the cave for his packs, but Pilar said, "They can sleep with me as last night." "Will you not have sentries?" he asked. "The night is clear and the storm is over." "Fernando goes," Pilar said. Maria was in the back of the cave, and Robert Jordan could not see her. "Good night to everyone," he had said. I am going to sleep. Of the others, who were laying out blankets and bedrolls on the floor in front of the cooking fire, pushing back the slab tables and the rawhide covered stools to make sleeping space, Primitivo and Andres looked up and said Buenos noches. Anselmo was already asleep in a corner, rolled in his blanket and his cape, not even his nose showing. Pablo was asleep in his chair. Do you want a sheep hide for thy bed? Pilar asked Robert Jordan softly. Nay, he said. Thank thee. I do not need it. Sleep well, she said. I will respond for thy material. Fernando had gone out with him and stood a moment where Robert Jordan had spread the sleeping robe. You have a curious idea to sleep in the open, Don Roberto. He said, standing there in the dark, muffled in his blanket cape, his carbine slung over his shoulder. I am accustomed to it. Good night. Since you are accustomed to it, when are you relieved? At 4. There is much cold between now and then. I am accustomed to it, Fernando said. Since then, you are accustomed to it, Robert Jordan said politely. Yes, Fernando agreed. Now I must get up there. Good night, Don Roberto. Good night, Fernando. Then he had made a pillow of the things he took off and gotten into the robe, and then, laying and waited, feeling the spring of the boughs under the flannelly, feathered lightness of the robe warmth, watching the mouth of the cave across the snow, feeling his heart beat as he waited. The night was clear, and his head felt as clear and cold as the air. He smelled the odor of the pine boughs under him, the piney smell of the crushed needles, and the sharper odor of the resinous sap from the cut limbs. Pilar, he thought, Pilar and the smell of death. This is the smell I love. This and fresh cut clover and crushed sage as you ride after cattle, wood smoke and the burning leaves of autumn. That must be the odor of nostalgia. The smell of the smoke from the piles of raked leaves burning in the streets in the fall in Missoula. Which would you rather smell? Sweet grass the Indians used in their baskets, smoked leather, the odor of the ground in the spring after rain, the smell of the sea as you walk through the gorse on a headland in Galicia, or the wind from the land as you come in toward Cuba in the dark. That was the odor of the cactus flowers, mimosa, and the sea grape shrubs. Or would you rather smell frying bacon in the morning when you are hungry, or coffee in the morning, or a Jonathan apple as you bite into it, or a cider mill and the grinding of bread fresh from the oven? He must be hungry, he thought, and he lay on his side and watched the entrance of the cave, the light, the stars reflected from the snow. Someone came out from under the blanket, and he could see whoever it was standing by the break in the rock that made the entrance. Then he heard a slithering sound in the snow, and then whoever it was ducked down and went back in. I suppose she won't come until they are asleep, he thought. It is a waste of time. The night is half gone. Oh, Maria. Come now, quickly, Maria, for there is little time. He heard the soft sound of snow falling from a branch onto the snow on the ground. A little wind was rising. He felt it on his face. Suddenly he felt a panic that she might not come. The wind was rising now. The wind rising now reminded him how soon it would be morning. More snow fell from the branches as he heard the wind now moving the pine tops. Come now, Maria. Please, come now. Come here now, quickly, he thought. Oh, come here now and do not wait. There is no importance any more to your waiting until they are asleep. Then he saw her coming out from under the blanket that covered the cave mouth. She stood there a moment, and he knew it was she, but he could not see what she was doing. He whistled a low whistle, and she was still at the cave mouth, doing something in the darkness of the rock shadow. Then she came running, carrying something in her hands, and he saw her running long-legged through the snow. Then she was kneeling by the rope, her head pushed hard against him, slapping snow from her feet. She kissed him and handed him her bundle. Put it with thy pillow, she said. I took these off there to save time. You came barefoot through the snow? Yes, she said, and wearing only my wedding shirt. He held her close and tight in his arms, and she rubbed her head against his chin. Avoid the feet, she said. They are very cold, Roberto. Put them here and warm them. Nay, she said, they will warm quickly. But say quickly now that you love me. I love thee. Good, good, good. I love thee, little rabbit. Do you love my wedding shirt? It is the same one as always. Yes, as last night. It is my wedding shirt. Put thy feet here. Nay, that would be abusive. They will warm of themselves. They are warm to me. It is only that the snow has made them cold toward thee. Say it again. I love thee, my little rabbit. I love thee too, and I am thy wife. Were they asleep? No, she said, but I could support it no longer. And what importance has it? None, he said, and he felt her against him, slim and long and warmly lovely. No other thing has importance. Put thy hand on my head, she said, and then let me see if it can kiss thee. Was it well? She asked. Yes, he said. Take off thy wedding shirt. You think I should? Yes, if thou wilt not be cold. Que va? Cold. I am on fire. I too. But afterwards thou wilt not be cold? No. Afterwards we will be as one animal of the forest, and be so close that neither one can tell that one of us is one and not the other. Can you not feel my heart be your heart? Yes, there is no difference. Now feel. I am thee, and thou art me, and all of one is the other. And I love thee, oh, I love thee so. Are you not truly one? Canst thou not feel it? Yes, he said, it is true. And feel now, thou hast no heart but mine, nor any other legs, nor feet, nor of the body. But we are different, she said. I would have us exactly the same. You do not mean that. Yes, I do. I do. That is the thing I had to tell thee. You do not mean that. Perhaps I do not, she said, speaking softly with her lips against his shoulder. But I wish to say it, since since we are different, I am glad that thou art Roberto, and I Maria. But if thou should ever wish to change, I would be glad to change. I would be thee because I love thee so. I do not wish to change. It is better to be one, and each one to be the one he is. But we will be one now, and there will never be a separate one. Then she said, I will be thee when thou art not there. Oh, I love thee so, and I must care well for thee. Maria? Yes. Maria. Yes, Maria. Oh, yes, please. Art thou not cold? Oh, no. Pull the robe over thy shoulders. Maria, I cannot speak. Oh, Maria, Maria, Maria. Then afterwards, close with the night cold outside and the long warmth of the robe, her head touching his cheek. She lay quiet and happy against him, and then said softly, And thou? Como tu, he said. Yes, she said, but it was not as this afternoon. No, but I loved it more, and does not need to die. Ohala, Ohala, no, he said. I hope not. I do not mean that. I know what thou meanest. You mean the same. Then why did you say that instead of what I meant? Oh man, there's a difference. Then I am glad that we are different. And so am I, he said. But I understand about the dying. I only spoke thus as a man from habit. I feel the same as thee. However thou art, and however thou speakest, is how I would have thee be. And I love thee, and I love thy name, Maria. It is a common name. No, he said, it is not common. Now should we sleep? She said. I could sleep easily. Let us sleep, he said, and he felt the long, light body warm against him, comforting against him, abolishing loneliness against him, magically, by a simple touching of flanks, of shoulders, and of feet, making an alliance against death with him. And he said, Sleep well, little long rabbit. She said, I am asleep already. I am going to sleep, he said. Sleep well, beloved. Then he was asleep, and happy as he slept. But in the night he woke and held her tight, as though she were all of life, and it was being taken from him. He held her, feeling she was all of life. She was all of life there was, and it was true. But she was sleeping well and soundly, and she did not wake. So he rolled away onto his side and pulled the robe over her head and kissed her once on her neck under the robe, and then pulled the pistol lanyard up and put the pistol by his side where he could reach it handily. And then he lay there in the night thinking. End of chapter 20. It's got a long way to go. A long book. long as this next chapter? Isn't there a battle coming up soon? Oh, that's a very short chapter. At least read that. The lighting's a little better in here. I'm gonna put that candle on. An intense romance between the protagonist and this young woman. I'm sure. I wonder how old she's supposed to be. Probably mentioned it. Seems strange that she's staying with this group of guerrilla warfighters. We probably talked about why that is at some point. I just forget. Hemingway, man. The guy went through some shit. He was a good writer. Man. I think that the best writers put themselves through crazy shit because it's made them better equipped to deal with what life throws at you. And it's the kind of mind people want to read the work of. Like me, for example.
takes more than just a steady paycheck to not suffer in this life. Maybe just something entirely different. A little different setup that is.
Chapter 21. A warm wind came with daylight, and he could hear the snow melting in the trees, and the heavy sound of its falling. It was a late spring morning. He knew with the first breath he drew that the snow had been only a freak storm in the mountains, and it would be gone by noon. Then he heard a horse coming, the hoofs bald with the wet snow thumping dully as the horseman trotted. He heard the noise of a carbine scabbard slapping loosely and the creak of leather. "Maria," he said, and shook the girl's shoulder to waken her. "Keep thyself under the robe." And he buttoned his shirt with one hand and held the automatic pistol in the other, loosening the safety catch with his thumb. He saw the girl's cropped head. What does that mean, cropped? Does that mean, like, shaved? Disappear with a jerk under the robe, and then he saw the horseman coming through the trees. He crouched now in the robe, and holding the pistol in both hands, aimed it at the man as he rode toward him. He had never seen this man before. The horseman was almost opposite him now. He was riding a big gray gelding, and he wore a khaki beret, a blanket cape like a poncho, and heavy black boots. From the scabbard on the right of his saddle projected the stock and the long, oblong clip of a short automatic rifle. He had a young, hard face, and at this moment he saw Robert Jordan. He reached his hand down toward the scabbard, and as he swung low, turning and jerking at the scabbard, Robert Jordan saw the scarlet of a formalized device he wore on the left breast of his khaki cape. Aiming at the center of his chest, a little lower than the device, Robert Jordan fired. The pistol roared in the snowy woods. The horse plunged as though he had been spurred, and the young man, still tugging at the scabbard, slid over toward the ground, his right foot caught in the stirrup. The horse broke off through the trees, dragging him, bumping face downward, and Robert Jordan stood up holding the pistol now in one hand. The big gray horse was galloping through the pines. There was a broad swath in the snow where the man dragged, with a scarlet streak along one side of it. People were coming out of the mouth of the cave. Robert Jordan reached down and unrolled his trousers from the pillow and began to put them on. Get thee dressed," he said to Maria. Overhead he heard the noise of a plane flying very high. Through the trees he saw where the gray horse had stopped and was standing, his rider still hanging face down from the stirrup. "Go catch that horse," he called to Primitivo, who had started over toward him. Then, "Who is on guard at the top?" "Raphael," Pilar said from the cave. She stood there, her hair still down her back in two braids. "There's cavalry out," Robert Jordan said. "Get your damned gun up there." He heard Pilar call, "Augustine," into the cave. Then she went into the cave, and then, two men came running out, one with the automatic rifle, with its tripod swung over his shoulder, the other with a sack full of the pans. Get up there with them, Robert Jordan said to Anselmo. You lie beside the gun and hold the leg still, he said. The three of them went up the trail through the woods at a run. The sun had not yet come up over the tops of the mountains. Robert Jordan stood straight, buttoning his trousers and tightening his belt, the big pistol hanging from the lanyard on his wrist. He put the pistol in its holster on the belt and slipped the knot down on the lanyard and passed the loop over his head. Somebody will choke you with that sometime, he said. Well, somebody will choke you with that sometime, he said. He thought. Well, this has done it. He took the pistol out of the holster, removed the clip, inserted one of the cartridges from the row alongside of the holster, and shoved the clip back into the butt of the pistol. He looked through the trees to where Primitivo, holding the reins of the horse, was twisting the rider's foot out of the stirrup. The body lay face down in the snow, and as he watched, Primitivo was going through the pockets. Come on, he called. Bring the horse. As he knelt to put on his rope-soled shoes, Robert Jordan could feel Maria against his knees, dressing herself under the rope. She had no place in his life now. That cavalryman did not expect anything. He was thinking. He was not following horse tracks, and he was not even properly alert, let alone alarmed. He was not even following the tracks up to the post. He must have been one of a patrol scattered out in these hills. But when the patrol misses him, they will follow his tracks here, unless the snow melts first, he thought. Unless something happens to the patrol. You better get down below, he said to Pablo. They were all out of the cave now, standing there with the carbines and with grenades on their belts. Pilar held a leather bag of grenades toward Robert Jordan, and he took 3 and put them in his pocket. He ducked into the cave, found his 2 packs, opened the one with the submachine gun in it, and took out the barrel and stock. Slipped the stock onto the forward assembly and put 1 clip into the gun and 3 in his pockets. He locked the pack and started for the door. I've got 2 pockets full of hardware, he thought. I hope the seams hold. He saw out of the cave and said to Pablo, I'm going up above. Can Augustine shoot that gun? Yes, Pablo said. He was watching Primitivo leading up the horse. Mira que caballo, he said. Look what a horse. The big gray was sweating and shivering in a little, and Robert Jordan patted him on the withers. I will put him with the others, Pablo said. No, Robert Jordan said. He has made tracks into here. He must make them out. True, agreed Pablo. I will ride him out, and will hide him, and bring him in when the snow is melted. Thou hast much head today, Ingles. Send someone below, Robert Jordan said. We've got to get up there. It is not necessary, Pablo said. Horsemen cannot come that way. But we can get out by there, and by 2 other places. It is better not to make tracks if there are planes coming. Give me the bota with wine, Pilar. To go off and get drunk, Pilar said. Here, take these instead. He reached over and put 2 of the grenades in his pockets. Que va, to get drunk, Pablo said. There is gravity in the situation, but give me the bota. I do not like to do all this on water. He reached his arms up, took the reins, and swung up into the saddle. He grinned and patted the nervous horse. Robert Jordan saw him rub his leg along the horse's flank affectionately. Que caballo más bonito, he said, and patted the big gray again. Que caballo más hermosa. Come on. The faster this gets out of here, the better. He reached down and pulled the light automatic rifle with its ventilated barrel, really a submachine gun, built to take the 9mm pistol cartridge from the scabbard, and looked at it. Look how they are armed, he said. Look at modern cavalry. There's modern cavalry over there on his face, Robert Jordan said. Vámonos. There's modern cavalry. Do you, Andres, saddle and hold the horses in readiness. If you hear firing, bring them up to the woods behind the gap. Come with thy arms, and leave the women to hold the horses. Fernando, see that my sacks are brought also. Above all, that my sacks are brought carefully. Thou to look after my sacks, too, he said to Pilar. Thou to verify that they come with the horses. Vámonos, he said. Let us go. Maria and I will prepare all for leaving, Pilar said. Then to Robert Jordan, look at him, nodding at Pablo on the gray horse, sitting him in the heavy-thighed herdsman manner, the horse's nostrils widening as Pablo replaced the clip in the automatic rifle. See what a horse has done for him. That I should have 2 horses, Robert Jordan said fervently. Danger is thy horse. Then give me a mule, Robert Jordan grinned. Strip me of that, he said to Pilar. Robert Jordan grinned. Danger, wait. Then give me a mule. Strip me of that, he said to Pilar, and jerked his head toward where the man lay face down in the snow. And bring everything, all the letters and papers, and put them in the outside pocket of my sack. Everything, understand? Yes. Vámonos, he said. Pablo rode ahead, and the 2 men followed in a single file, in order not to track up the snow. Robert Jordan carried the submachine gun muzzle down, carrying it by its forward hand grip. I wish it took the same ammunition that saddle gun takes, he thought, but it doesn't. This is a German gun. This was old Kashkin's gun. The sun was coming over the mountains now. A warm wind was blowing, and the snow was melting. It was a lovely late spring morning. Robert Jordan looked back and saw Maria standing with Pilar. Then she came running up the trail. He dropped behind Primitivo to speak to her. Thou, she said, can I go with thee? No, help Pilar. She was walking behind him and put her hand on his arm. I'm coming. Nay. She kept on walking close behind him. I could hold the legs of the gun in the way thou told Anselmo. Thou wilt hold no legs, neither of guns nor of nothing. Walking beside him, she reached forward and put her hand in his pocket. No, he said, but take good care of thy wedding shirt. Kiss me, she said, if thou goest. Thou art shameless, he said. Yes, she said, totally. Get thee back now, there is much work to do. We may fight here if they follow these horse tracks. Thou, she said, didst thee see what he wore on his chest? Yes, why not? It was the Sacred Heart. Yes, All the people of Navaria wear it. And thou shot for that? No. Below it. Get me back now. Thou, she said, I saw all. Thou saw nothing. One man from a horse. Vete, get thee back. Say that you love me. No, not now. Not love me now? Dejamos, get thee back. One does not do that and love all at the same moment. I want to go to hold the legs of the gun, and while it speaks, love thee all in the same moment. Thou art crazy. Get thee back now. I am crazy, she said. I love thee. Then get thee back. Good. I go. And if thou dost not love me, I love thee enough for both. He looked at her and smiled through his thinking. When you hear firing, he said, come with the horses. Aid the Pilar with my sacks. It is possible there will be nothing. I hope so. I go, she said. Look what a horse Pablo rides. The big gray was moving ahead of the trail. Yes, but go. I go. Her fist, clenched tight in his pocket, beat hard against his thigh. He looked at her and saw there were tears in her eyes. She pulled her fist out of his pocket and put both arms tight around his neck and kissed him. I go, she said. Me voy. I go. He looked back and saw her standing there, the first morning sunlight on her brown face and her cropped, tawny, burned gold hair. She lifted her fist at him and turned and walked back down the trail, her head down. Primitivo turned around and looked at her and looked after her. If she did not have her hair cut so short, she would be a pretty girl, he said. Yes, Robert Jordan said. He was thinking of something else. How is she in bed? Primitive asked. What? In the bed. Watch thy mouth. One should not be offended when... Leave it, Robert Jordan said. He was looking at the position. End of chapter 20. Chapter 22 isn't too long. Might read it. .45 p.m. Screw it, that's enough for now.